I had never built a company per se, right? I had not managed all the other aspects. So I know how to build product. So we thought, okay, let's jump in, try it one more time. I think my plan B was, okay, if I fail, I wanted to join a bigger company like say IBM or Google or Oracle, because probably then I can travel in business class. So
Today we have with us a founder whose journey truly embodies the spirit of our theme for this year's podcast series, Winning Beyond Boundaries. Girish Mathrubootham, or G as he's fondly called by everyone who loves him, is the founder and executive chairman of Freshworks, a leading provider of modern SaaS solutions. For SaaS entrepreneurs in India, he's no less than a rock star. He's like the Talaiva of startups. He's an icon who's put India's name on the global SaaS map. He's grown Freshworks from its humble beginnings in Chennai to a NASDAQ-listed company valued at over 4 billion. Operations span across multiple countries. What sets Girish apart is his ability to transcend geographic and cultural boundaries, building a company that resonates with customers globally while staying true to its roots in good old Chennai, which also happens to be my hometown. But Girish's boundary-breaking spirit doesn't stop there. He's ventured into the world of sports by pumping considerable dollars into youth football club FC Madras, further expanding his life beyond the realms of tech. He has also started the Together Fund with Shubham and Manav, and the fund actively invests in young SaaS startups. With a unique blend of entrepreneurial grit, a global mindset, and a passion for innovation, Girish Mathrubootham has truly carved a path as a boundary-defying leader. His insights and experiences will inspire us to learn what it takes to win beyond boundaries from India. Welcome to the podcast, Girish. Lovely to have you. I thought we'll start with people understanding who you are from your history of growing up, and of course, maybe the best way to introduce you is like your undying love for Superstar Rajinikanth, right? And there's a lot, I'm sure, to growing up, but did he influence you right from the beginning? Was it a love that you found later when you became a college student? So just wanted to get a flavor for someone who even made it into your IPO documentation, and you had a tribute to him there as well. So what is it about him, and what is the appeal out here? And I'm sure you've met him many times as well.
First of all, thanks for having me on the show, Karthik. And so I think talking about Talaivar Superstar, I don't think anyone can actually answer why they love him, because there are millions of fans. But I would say my love and respect for him really changed in 2011, actually, year after starting Freshworks, right? So I've been his fan and watched a lot of his movies, millions of others, and been to the first day first shows. But what actually we all witnessed in 2011, when unfortunately he had a medical condition, he had to go to Singapore, and it was a serious medical treatment. I was moved by the emotional outpour of the fans, so many fans offering prayers at temples. And then he came back and actually thanked the fans that their prayers are what brought him back. So the thought in my mind was, how can one man be living in the hearts of so many millions of people? What an impact that he has. So the respect for that is what truly turned me into, I would say, a devotee, his devotee, right? So, and I think I'll actually tell you my previous CMO of Freshworks, David Thompson, when he came to India, he asked me, he does not know who Superstar is at that time. So he asked me, who's a bigger star, Shah Rukh Khan or Rajinikanth? So, and I told him, Shah Rukh Khan is a star, Rajinikanth is an emotion. I think...
I remember this line. Yeah, I remember this line. Is it a very similar emotion when you look at what Dhoni has done? Partly because he's a hometown boy here in Chennai. But do you relate it to it?
I think both of them as leaders carry a lot of common traits, which all of us as leaders can learn from. Not letting success get into your head, the way you treat people, staying humble after all the accomplishment that you have made. homegrown talent but global successes. Like look at Japan, right, where Superstar has such a
Massive
huge,
following,
massive fan following.
No, in fact, I was going to reference that little tidbit as well, that he has like this massive following in Japan, and that also fits into like our theme for today,
Okay.
which is like winning beyond boundaries. And some of our stars have done that, like build global brands much before Bollywood, and some parts of it made them popular. Take us through maybe your college days and your formative days, and we've done a bunch of research and little tidbits here and there. You had your college friends first backed you, Ravi and Rajesh. I think Rajesh is still at Freshworks perhaps. What makes someone, and it's not uncommon, but what makes someone believe in you, and what drove these friendships? And
See, I think the college friendships that happen in India are probably the best things about college itself, right? And I actually say all my education started after college. So I think the friendships are what I treasure for life. And the backstory to specifically Raj and Ravi is they backed my first venture too, and I lost money, right? Like This was in 2001 when I was moving back from the US to start a training company in India. They had each invested a few lakhs, and I had to shut down that business because IT training in 2001 after the dot-com bust never really picked up. So I joined regular employment. And so it was like I had it in my mind that someday I have to repay the debt, or it was equity though, but in my mind it was always the moral responsibility.
I can understand the emotions.
Yeah, and so when I started Freshdesk, like Freshworks was started as Freshdesk.
That's right.
So I actually approached them saying, do it again, and this time we'll make it worth the while. So
awesome. And you talked about your startup failure. Is that what led you to thinking about you should go and figure out a job where you can learn more? Like, what is the beginning of that? I think when you joined Zoho, it was still AdventNet, and you're known in the ecosystem for being this amazing product person. Where did those skills get honed? And I know you did sales as well. So trying to understand that journey of what made Girish confident of. I know there's a backstory to Freshworks, but what is the training for that?
See, I think there are two important, I would say, lessons from life. Or one is a lesson, one is an experiential learning. So during my training days, right? So before my 2001 venture failed, I actually had a successful training business in 98, 99, right?
Okay.
I was teaching Java, right? And you remember those days during the dot-com boom, like if you could spell Java on your resume, you were hired, right? So I think the business was booming and successful. And when I say booming at a much smaller scale, I was just doing it as a think of it as earning some money.
Good
on the
lifestyle
side.
business.
Yeah, so it's a lifestyle business. So, but what I realized was when everybody wanted something, it is easier to grow a business. In 2001, when the macro turned, when I say macro, after the dot-com bust, when jobs were not there at the end of the training course, that lesson of riding a wave is what I learned. So I was riding the Java wave in 98, 99. That wave had vanished. So there was, and even though I probably was better in Java, better equipped with training, etc., but it didn't matter.
Yeah,
So riding a wave was the important lesson that I picked up there. So specifically, I think coming to my experience at Zoho, I think there is one pivotal experiential learning. I joined Zoho as when they were AdventNet as a pre-sales engineer, and because of my training background, I spoke to the team and said I will also take up training. So I traveled in the initial years to do customer trainings. So after one such trip, I came and spoke to my boss at that time, Kumar Vembu, who's also my mentor. So I told him, hey, I got this feedback from a reseller in Korea. Like, why are we not building enterprise products in network management? Because we were selling OEM developer products. We had a platform. So Kumar actually turned the table on me and said, okay, sure, good idea. Why don't you build it? I did not know at that time that the company had already tried twice and failed. He didn't tell me that. Okay. So, but they also had the idea. So the interests aligned. So they thought, okay, why don't we give him a choice? So I was also running product marketing for a year, and I was getting frustrated with marketing. So when I pitched this idea to Kumar, he actually introduced the concept of a product manager to me. I did not know what the term product manager meant, right? So he took me out for a chai and actually said, Girish, you know what the problem is? You're an authoritative person. Marketing is a consultative job. So that is why you're facing all this frustration. So why don't you actually become a product manager and build the product, right? So I didn't even think about it. I said, okay, because I wanted to try something new. And then I went and Googled job responsibilities of a product manager. That's how I am an accidental product manager.
Yeah.
But I think when I started exploring more, I fell in love. The most important thing that happened was what we today celebrate as India SaaS, global from India.
Yeah.
I think the foundational work for that happened then. See, when at that time, even at Zoho, product management was in the US. Product marketing was in the US. India was predominantly an R&D, tech, engineering and QA center. Even design was kind of split between India and US. So I think, so I said, okay, let's do everything from India. Again, most of it was trial and error. I stumbled upon a Google AdWords account that somebody had created and put $50 in. So I thought, okay, why don't we try bidding on the keywords? And every day we would get so many more. Leads. And it is all on-prem software.
Yeah.
So downloadable software, but we'll get so many leads. And it was like you pump in more money, you'll just get even more leads, right? So, and we put an online trial. So we actually did everything from product management to marketing to software development, support, sales, everything from Chennai, right? So the genesis of, or the origins of building global products from India and actually figuring out that inbound engine, what we call as inbound engine and desk-based selling, SaaSBoomi calls it desk selling.
Yeah.
All of this was hand-built by trial and error in those days. There was if you read the book, The World is Flat, it starts off by saying how India made all these investments in leased lines where phone. So we had a leased line connection. Phone was available, so we thought, okay, we'll start selling and supporting. So it was just a discovery of available resources and trying to figure out a model, which today is a proven
become the playbook.
Yeah.
You know, and I think while you get a lot of credit for that, you know, what gave you the courage to finish that piece of your history on how Freshworks got started? I know that a couple of stories. There's one around you seeing some news item on Hacker News about Zendesk. There's another about how your TV experience in the US. I think I've heard it from you. It's always a combination of things. But you know, what gives, you know, back then the courage for someone to say, you know, I think I can stake out on my own. I can build a product company. I know you made SaaS popular, but for a very long time, investors didn't have anybody even covering SaaS. Maybe there were 3-4 of us in India up till 2015. Now it's of course hot, and SaaSBoomi has become a revolution. But back then, what was it? Just the Zoho experience which gave you enough air cover to say that I can do this, and a set of problems that you saw?
So I think it's a combination of factors. First of all, let's talk about the two stories, right? So one is about how did I get the idea for what product I wanted to build? So that's the moving from US, a broken TV, a shipping company broke my TV. I contacted them online, tried calling and emailing them. They wouldn't actually process the insurance claim. So that story has been told 1,000 times, so I don't want to bore our audience with that. But the long story short is, when I shared my experiences online in a forum, the community started engaging. The president of the company came and apologized, and the next day money was in the bank. So I realized the power of online taking on, like, customer support moving online. So it was like a paradigm shift, because when you call a call center,
it's
the user does not have any power over the company. But when the same problem goes online, brand reputation takes a hit. This was 2009 and 10, right? Yes. 2010 February exactly when I shared my experience. So Twitter wasn't big, Facebook wasn't big for customer service or anything. So I think I could sense that, hey, something is changing in the world of customer service, where the power dynamics is shifting back to the customer. So that's where the idea of, hey, is there something we could build to leverage that, right? That's the idea for the product. But the actual impetus to start the company, or the slap on the face, came when I read that Hacker News article on Zendesk increasing their prices by 300%, users revolting. So this was a casual Hacker News article that I was reading after lunch. And I was thinking, somebody had commented that, hey, it just shows how somebody can come and build the right product and take all the market away. I went and spoke to my friend and said, hey, we should work on this idea and customer service because there seems to be an opening. So that was the push to actually jump into action. But the idea was formed a few months ago when I was thinking about my experience.
And, so now coming into the early Freshwork days, just coincidentally, when I read this about your company being incorporated October 13th, there was a strange memory that I think we also incorporated around then. So I actually had someone check this last night. We were incorporated October 12th.
Oh, okay.
2010. So Blume was born around the same week. But, and I think experiences are similar, but, Blume's story has also been told a lot of times. But I'd love for people to understand, the talent pool just wasn't there. And this was the biggest challenge going 15 years back, right? So we have the privilege of working with 2-3 of the first 10 people that you put together now in Atomic Work or other, startups that we have funded. And so we hear great stories, but how did you kind of, think that sitting in Chennai, you can build this, this marketing, sales oriented, engineering oriented company that can build a global product from here?
So before I actually answer that, I will also add on to the last question because I said it's a combination of factors, right?
Yeah.
So, I wasn't dreaming big of building $1 billion company or a unicorn from Chennai. So, I think there was also another factor contributing to that, right? So, I had moved to the US for 1.5 years and then moved back to Chennai. So, by that time, there were new product managers. So, I was more like overseeing multiple products. And I was kind of getting bored, right? So, I'm that I'm a product manager at heart. So I like rolling up my sleeves and actually working on product. When I moved to the US, I missed the people working with teams on a daily basis. So, but when I came back, that environment for me to jump back and build product was not there. And I was looking at the rise of SaaS, SaaS adoption growing. And I was running on-premise software. So that was also a reason why, what am I doing being the head of an on-premise software company or a division when there is so much happening in the world of SaaS? So maybe it's time to think about doing something. So that each was also there. But I think things came together. So when I decided to start, I think, and I'd say this to other founders, that there is a lot of overloaded meaning in what Steve Jobs said, stay hungry, stay foolish, right? We all enjoyed as a nice copy, a nice marketing line. Right. But after 14 years of Freshworks, I can tell you how much depth there is in meaning of that stay foolish means and stay hungry means. Because if I knew everything that I know today, I probably wouldn't even have started Freshworks, right? So I think it was just done on impulse that, hey, we have built so many products and taken many of these products to millions of dollars of revenue. So why don't we not just try doing it one more time, right? I had never built a company per se, right? I have not managed all the other aspects. So I know how to build product. So we thought, okay, let's jump in, try it one more time. I think my plan B was, okay, if I fail, maybe I'll go and I wanted to join a bigger company like say IBM or Google or Oracle, because probably then I can travel in business class.
So, no, that's awesome. It's the most honest answers that you get from Girish. No, I think the other element of this is, when you want to build an international business, how do you sort of, and this is what I want to drive home a lot this season in the podcast as well. Inherently there seems to be some sort of a complex. I won't give it a tag, but can we compete with the best of the best in the US? And they're local, they understand their market. We don't have those cultural nuances that an American would have naturally, right? Again, determined to build a company out of Chennai, how do you ensure that all of that falls in place on day one? So there are two sets of attributes. One is, there's a story about you saying, it doesn't matter what the first office looked like, what the chairs looked like, but everyone had to have the best machines, right? Because you can't compete globally without that. Second is, how does that the set of people attune to the fact that they're they're an American company for all practical purposes, sitting out of here. Because it's important. I think we've had not so many great success stories of founders being or continuing to stay in the Indian mindset, and that actually curbs the ability to become a great global company. But again, you were one of the first out of the gate. So curious what lessons there are for entrepreneurs on that.
See, there are two important aspects that you touched upon, right?
Okay.
One is around not spending on furniture, but spending on Macs. Let's talk about that first, and then I'll come to winning globally, right?
Yeah.
See, I think this is also a lesson from my mentor and boss Kumar Vembu, right? So, meaning what happened at Zoho, we were living through that journey, right? So, how do you be frugal in aspects that don't actually directly add value? Like, where do you put your office?
Yeah.
So, real estate. What's the point in being in a swanky building and paying rent through the roof when you're a startup who's trying to earn money, right? So we wanted to, but if it's impacting the quality of the final product, then those are the areas where you want to spend. So this is these are things that we have always followed. Even at FC Madras, if you can look at this, so everything that you see, the pitch, the hybrid pitch is world class, right?
Yeah.
The hostels are functional.
Yeah.
It'll be good, but so I think that is a mindset that every founder should know, where you spend and where you have a value mindset or a frugality mindset, right? So
Very important lesson.
yeah, do not compromise on because the product has to be world class, right? So the office in the early days can be a garage. We all know that. Every startup in the valley also uses that. So I think that's important. Now coming to the other aspect of the question, how do you compete globally, right? See, this is where I think we have to truly understand, go one level deeper and understand the business model, right? So the true disruption that we had with Freshworks is we have a very disruptive business model to the traditional enterprise software companies. So what is a typical enterprise software business model? You start in a country, most probably US. You are building for larger companies. So you hire a sales team and you go and meet and sell to customers. And when you meet and sell to customers face to face, there are these cultural nuances. You have to talk about baseball, you have to talk about weather, and it's very hard to do that, right?
Yeah.
But what if the customer is not talking to you, but is experiencing the product? So our business model disruption at Freshworks was all about going with an inbound acquisition model, long before the terms PLG became popular. So we actually were doing that. So in fact, when we had 100 customers for Freshworks, I had never met any of the first 100 customers in person. The first customer or prospect who I met was actually Deep Kalra, because I wanted to meet Deep, so I said I'll come and meet, right? So the important lesson here is our model was not a sales-heavy model. But in an enterprise model, if you start in India, you first will have to go and sell to India customers. If you start in Australia, you will have to start and win in Australia. That's a traditional model. So what we had in right from the early days, when we had 7 customers, they came from 4 different continents. And people come online. We drive traffic to the website. We make the experience super easy. They actually experience the product before speaking to a person. And today in the valley, even if you speak to any valley company, you're probably speaking to an Indian or an Indian accent. So that's not a problem today. But I think if the product is world class, the customers know that's what matters for them. So, and we used an affordable price, intuitive, easy to use product and a full featured product as a combination to get the wow from the customer before even they speak to somebody.
Now in this journey, after you've gone through 14 years, has that formula held tight as you've developed multiple products? Or alternatively, given that you've seen enough founders who've come for advice, is there, I understand the SaaS playbook very well now from how you described it, but when it comes to enterprise software, is there any tips that you've picked up which can help founders? Because a lot of companies try doing enterprise software. It's not easy. So one, maybe they should move their backsides to whichever market they're selling in. But beyond that, what else can work for them?
See, I think at Freshworks, we added a mid-market enterprise sales motion over the years.
Okay.
Like somewhere after 2016 is when we hired our first VP of sales in the US. Yes. So I think today we have a good mix of enterprise and SMB customers. I think, but it's an important, and also what has changed in the last decade, I would say, compared to, like if you take 2010 to say 2000 to 2010 or 15, the number of SMBs adopting technology or buying software, I think now in the last 10 years, I would say, thanks to SaaS and thanks to even COVID acceleration, I think everybody is now adopting technology. So the SMB market has actually expanded and exploded.
Yeah.
So enterprise has always been big. We know that if you take the enterprise share of the software market, that's always traditionally been big. But what we are witnessing now, and you can see companies who are selling to SMBs, whether it's a Monday or a HubSpot or you can see a lot more companies actually winning there, right? And that, so we have gone from our SMB, we have that is still a dominant portion of our business, but we also have added on this. So I think it's important for founders to early on pick one motion, because I'll also add that having these two motions is quite challenging, and we have multi-products also. We can talk about that later. But early in our journey, that question, like, can we build $1 billion company by focusing only on inbound and SMB? The answer at that point of time seemed to be, oh, it's hard because churn is higher in SMB. But I would actually say now that because so much adoption has started to happen, that it is possible, and it has been demonstrated by other companies, that you can build like $1 billion revenue company just focused on SMB also.
Just to touch a little bit about all this requires somebody to take a chance on you, right? Capital. And I know this, story of Shekhar getting started from Accel, giving you that small first check at seed. But, outside of that, again, Shekhar was relatively new. I remember meeting him before he formally took on the role at Accel. We were a part of like one small Saturday thinking group. And he was early as well. I know he was tentatively taking these bets. And it was very weak as an ecosystem beyond that. Maybe Nexus did a little, but... and then suddenly Leaf Excel comes and takes a SaaS bet in India, right, from Tiger. And while the model was well established in the US, I'm sure it wasn't simply them taking a courageous bet out here. It had to be something to do with Girish Mathrubootham, right? So what is that again, magic sauce that, or ability to sell a vision or a story that got you to those initial funding rounds? Because that was important to build this dream out.
See, I think this story probably played out in less than a year, right? Like from the Accel funding to the Tiger funding, probably 6 months, 8 months. So, and there is a lot of cascading effects of different things that happen, like the butterfly effect. So I think, and it's an interesting story, so I'll tell this. So first, how did we get into Accel, right? So we were building product. We were probably a few months away from even a beta release. I was the CEO who was sitting and doing all the other things, and I was building product, but I also was trying to do some marketing. I was writing a blog post. So one of the blog posts that I wrote was, we were participating in a AppSumo contest where there was a $50,000 AWS credits or something was the prize. So we thought, okay, and you had to write a post on how your startup is a lean startup.
Okay. So
I thought, okay, let me try and compete in that contest. So I wrote a blog post which was very famous even today. How a simple comment on Hacker News made me quit my comfortable job and start a startup. And I posted this on Hacker News. It went viral. This was on March 18th, 2011. Now, in that blog post, I had thanked Venture Hacks for helping me create a pitch deck and things like that. So this is, and Neval Ravikanth, who founder of Venture Hacks and AngelList. So he saw that, came and thanked me and said, hey, by the way, we have AngelList and we don't have Indian companies. So can I introduce you to, can you list on the platform? And I will send intros to investors who are in India. So we are actually, Freshworks is the first Indian startup to be listed on AngelList. Okay. But we were not funded through AngelList. So Naval sent a bunch of introductions. A few others are also sent a bunch of introductions. So Anand Daniel from Accel had seen that post and he gets an intro from Naval. So he reaches out to me and then I send him the pitch deck. And it was World Cup season. Anand was busy with probably cricket. So there was like 2-3 weeks of silence. Suddenly out of the blue, I get a email back after the World Cup saying, sorry, I dropped the ball on this, Girish. Can we talk? And then I pitch to Anand. And then he takes me to Shekhar. And then I pitch to Shekhar. So how the Accel funding happened, I actually asked Shekhar later. Because when Shekhar gave me a term sheet, like he visited our garage office, he was the one who made the comment that hey, your furniture is all cheap, but your developers have Macs. So that caught his eye. But the more interesting thing he said was, because I asked him later on, I was sending him startups with $500,000 revenue.
Yeah.
He invested in us when we had $2,000 of monthly recurring revenue. I asked him, how did you bet on Freshworks when we had $2,000 revenue while you are passing companies with $500,000 revenue? So he said, Girish, your $2,000 revenue comes from 70 different customers, all SMB customers globally. So product market fit is established. There is no risk. There's no product market fit risk. There's only execution risk. And that I am comfortable taking. The other company that you sent with $500,000, 60% or 80% of the revenue is coming from one customer where the founder used to work before. So that revenue goes away. So I don't know if the product market fit is there or not. So that was an interesting thing, right? And then what happened? 2 more things, right? So the rip-off or not event happened. Like basically there's another famous story. So we were announcing our Accel funding and we get attacked by a competitor and we are responding on the blog post. That goes viral.
It's a legendary story.
So multiple investors reach out to me and then I didn't want to, see I just got the Accel money in the bank. I didn't want to pitch, but one investor actually said, hey, why don't you fly to Mumbai? We will pay for the flight ticket. I called Shekhar and said, hey, they're saying they'll pay for the flight ticket. Should I go? Just to establish relationship is what they said. Shekhar said, go and meet, but don't take the flight ticket from them, right? So I went and pitched and they were very, like they wanted to do the deal, right? So they were, so when I was pitching, they said, Girish, we know that you are right now at 200 customers. We know you can get to 2,000 customers and 20,000 customers. That's not a problem. Valuation is what you want and so on. But when they actually made an offer, they said, can we do a 30% markup since you actually raised only in October? Right? So I said, see, I look at Freshworks as a value company. I know how Zendesk and Desk.com raised their rounds. So I don't want money now. But if I'm doing my next round, I need a 3x multiple, not a 30% markup.
To be at the price that you want.
Yeah, and then they kept upping, like making me slightly better offer, but I wasn't comfortable. So then again, Venture Hacks had a good advice saying, always fundraise in parallel. So I decided, okay, if there is interest, let me find how much interest is there. So I reached out to all the investors who had passed in the previous round, because now we had, by that time, January 2012, I think we had around $10,000 of monthly recurring revenue and 200 plus customers. And so I met 8 VCs in 1 week. So in Sun TV VC Varam Mariyat. So, and 5 of them were engaged. 1 of them was Leafixel. And that is also, that's why I call it a butterfly effect. So Leafixel, who usually never comes to Chennai, was in Chennai that week. He was making the investment in Carrot Lane, who was on your podcast earlier.
Oh, what a coincidence.
So I didn't know Carrot Lane or Mithun at that point of time. We became friends because of the Tiger investment. But he was there, and usually I make sure every investor comes to our office. But Lee said, I'm busy. Can you come and meet me at the hotel? And so I went to Crown Plaza Hotel with my iPad and pitched him the story. And pitch went very well. My story went well. But I was meeting VCs every day. The next day evening, Lee called and he told me one thing. Girish, the numbers don't make any sense. You're very, very early for us as a fund. But I'm making the bet on you.
Yeah.
You have seen the scale. And if you are okay, here are the terms. We can skip the term sheet and start due diligence. That's the speed at which he moved.
Yeah.
While the others were still negotiating offer, they sent a few analysts and asked me for a 5-year projection with Excel sheets. Like, I'm just 3 months old as a company. How will I have a 5-year projection and cash flow projection and so on, right? So I think I could see an investor who's aggressive, who believes in me, and that's how I decided to take on Lee.
No, I think had the pleasure of working with Lee on a few investments in that first 5-year stint, and then we still keep in touch. I say hello when I'm in New York. Yeah, amazing guy, and I keep saying this to his discomfort that actually in one of my investor letters I literally wrote a tribute to him on how he's single-handedly kind of accelerated the ecosystem a bit. I think if he was missing in the ecosystem from 2011 to 15, it would have been a couple of years slower.
Yeah.
I get that sense, right? Because he forced everybody to be on their toes, right? And people would say, what is Lee up to? But I think, and he's repeatedly told me, I think even perhaps about you, that comes down to people bets sometimes, and that gives them the courage to play a little earlier.
Yeah.
Actually,
what most people don't know is Freshworks was his first SaaS investment, Tiger's first SaaS investment, and at that time we were the smallest check that he had ever invested. The whole round was 5 million, and so they put in 3.5 at that time.
Amazing. So, like, moving to scaling now, like, how the whole idea of whether this can be a NASDAQ-listed company, I'm sure that 10, 12-year journey basically had like a lot of decisions. You must have made thousands of decisions, and that's what CEO founders get paid for, to make those decisions. Any sort of, favorite, pivotal moments where you said, this is what made the Freshworks 22 IPO happen? What would those be, if anything? And how do you also, maybe a little bit about your framework around how do you help sort of help yourself make those decisions, right? Do you have an advisory, group that you bounce these off, or you go with your gut intuition? Just trying to understand the mind of a solid entrepreneur.
See, I think if I look back at the Freshworks journey, there are actually 3 pivotal decisions, right?
Okay.
The first one was picking the inbound business model and going global without trying to go and sell in India or sell in one market. Right?
Yeah.
So that really opened up a huge market for us. And that is something that I've experienced in and have built in the past. And so we know that, and what the nuance that is not easily visible to the casual observer from the outside is, it looks like we are always competing in red ocean markets, but how do you spot pockets of blue ocean inside a red ocean? That's something we can probably talk about later, but that's important in the decision-making framework of where we want to play, right? So, but we pick these broad competitive markets, but the market is global. So going inbound and having a global market from day one is the first pivotal decision. Going multi-product was the second. And we went multi-product when things were pretty early and going good. And that's my advice to founders. So if you want to build a second and third product, you have to do it when things are going good.
Yeah.
Because when things are tough, you're going to be asked to cut costs. There won't be any bandwidth or resources left to actually start building, right? So when one of your products is taking off and doing well, you have to make some bets, experimental bets on your second and third build. So the product manager has to be worrying about revenue that's going to come 3 years down the line. The salesperson should be worrying about the revenue that's coming in the next quarter, right?
Yeah.
So both are important. So that was the second important decision. And then third was the decision to actually overlay a field enterprise motion on top of an inbound motion that was working. Again, in the context of the time, at that time when the decision was being made, I think it helped us because all these 3 shaped the IPO story at NASDAQ, where, hey, it's not a one product company. The TAM is huge. They are already at scale at 2 different markets, and they're working on other products. They have enterprise customers. See, Wall Street also likes, till very recently, they love enterprise software companies more than SMB companies. So they have success in enterprise. So the foundational elements for a successful IPO were actually shaped by these 3 decisions that were taken at different points of time.
Just one sort of counter caveat on that when you thought about, I'm guessing the multi-product strategy meant you wanted to shed the old name of Freshdesk and move to Freshworks. So I don't know whether the naming thing had something to do with the
Yes.
Okay. And then when you think about multi-product, do you feel like in a lot of businesses, even the biggest guys who are listed, right, the Oracles and the Salesforce of the world, eventually, if you want to build a legendary long-term company, isn't it inevitable that the market sizing opportunities of each segment that you play in or each product that you play in force you to start thinking about adjacencies, either through acquisition or building your own products? How do you know it's time? As you said, one is when you have the resources, start thinking in that direction. But were there any natural triggers? Is it always listening to the customer or the market first? I'm sure you didn't start building products randomly, right?
Yeah. See, again, this is a multi-layered question. There are many flavors, right? So, okay, let's start with the first aspect, right? Should a startup do only one product or multiple products, and when is the right time to do it?
Yeah.
Every large company has multiple products. But in the US, they probably get to 100, 200 million before they even think of the second product. Now, is it a function of what is the driving function there? I think it's scarcity of development resources. So the cost of an experiment for a startup in India is actually much lower. Experiment, and that's important. I'm not saying you're blitzscaling and throwing the entire business and burning millions. For us, and the cost of an experiment was, 5 or 6 developers, 9 months to 12 months, less than 300K to 500K. So that was the cost of an experiment to see whether something flies or not, right? So in fact, before we launched our second product, we actually built one and shut it down in 2012 also, right? Because that didn't make sense at the time. So that's one aspect of it, again, because it's a very contextual question. So second thing is, we went multi-product because ours is a business model disruption story and it is SMB. So I am in the business of I'm not going whale hunting. I am actually catching a lot of fish. So I could, I looked at my role at Freshworks in the early years as like a VC. So I have these 2 or 3 bets. I am replicating a model and I can create another team, which is, so there's a shared services team in HR and IT and finance, but the product team and the sales team and the engineering team are different, but they are exactly replicating the model, which is our unique differentiator, like going inbound. So the keyword based online search, how do you capture the search? So I know that we have the opportunity. So how do because for me to get to that high growth numbers, I could not use an SMB business with the inbound, with the churn characteristics. I cannot get a 200%, 300% growth. Like Freshworks went from 1 million to 5 million to 15 to 34 to 56, right? So that journey was not possible with only one product. So because we knew there existed our business model differentiation or disruption, I can replicate that. So that's one of the reasons. The third aspect is, how will I choose to build? I'm a big fan of a book that I read during my college days from Ram Charan, where he says every business is a growth business. The fundamental takeaway for me from that book was, there are 2 ways to grow your business. One, you can take your existing feature set and try and go to a different market segment, to a different customer set. Or you can go to your existing customers and give them more features of what you don't already have. So, and they showed how companies like GE actually did both. And I think that lesson stuck. So if you look at what we have done, so Freshdesk started with ticketing, right? Email ticketing, self-service portal, knowledge base. So we took that to Freshservice for internal help desk for IT, and then later on built more for what IT needed. But this was the first flip, right? And then if you look at, for the same customer, Freshchat, Freshcaller, for a customer support customer, we look at what are the other tools that they're paying. Okay, you're already my customer, and we are the works like the system of record platform for you. So why should I give the opportunity for somebody else to build a small standalone tool? So we start building more features for the same customer. So this has been the
So I think shifting gears a little, I feel like the other challenge I'm seeing in some of our younger startups is, how do you, the 2 levels of challenges. One is when you're building a strong long-term culture, which you need to become a public company and beyond. I know you've used a cricket analogy once, talking about how you would pick younger talent and then groom them there. So 2 parts to that question. We've seen a lot of companies actually in our portfolio when they're building for a new segment, new type of talent. I think it's an inevitable playbook. They accidentally go and try and figure out a lot more fresher talent. Right? Because you can influence it, you can groom it in a certain way. And there's no easy hiring ground. Now that you're a very large company and then you have to start thinking about the US, now you're picking up lateral talent. And you're trying to bring them into the context of how Freshworks is built over this decade. A very contrasting set of hiring and cultural challenges. How does a founder deal with these? I mean, it goes back to like theme here being, how do you build global businesses as, this young man from Chennai or from Bombay or from Noida?
So I think the context of the early years is talent simply did not exist. Like if I was trying to hire my first marketing person for Freshworks in 2011. So it was incredibly hard to find somebody who had done software marketing globally from India. Right. So, but if I go to the Valley, I could actually hire 9 different disciplines of SaaS marketing, like inbound marketing, customer advocacy marketing, digital marketing, field marketing. So 9 disciplines of SaaS marketing in the US. So that's the level of talent sophistication in the US versus finding somebody who had done. So what do you do in that context? So the secret sauce for our hiring, again, my big life lesson comes from a book called First Break All the Rules by Marcus Bingham. So this is a book about people, like how as somebody, so the core takeaways, 2 or 3 takeaways from the book. One is, you have to learn to differentiate between skills, knowledge, and talent. So skills are easily teachable and learnable. Knowledge, there is factual knowledge and there is experiential knowledge. Factual knowledge, again, easily teachable. Like skills is programming in Java is a skill, right? Or using Adobe Photoshop is a skill. Factual knowledge, sun rises in the east or it's hot in Chennai. These are all facts. Experiential knowledge, a retailer knowing how can I place my merchandise at a particular spot so that it will people will add it on to their basket, right? So it comes from experience, but over time, some of the experiential knowledge can become best practices. Talent is not teachable. It's something you're born with, right? And how do you identify talent? When you talk about certain topics, your mind opens up like a 8-lane highway and ideas flow. When you talk about certain other topics, like to me, if you talk about databases or version control systems, my mind will close, right? So people are naturally interested in certain things. And talent, when I say talent, I boil it down to really core traits. Like, are you an unorganized creative person or are you a very organized regimental person? Are you very articulate and enjoy talking to people, or are you like introverted, would rather not speak, right? So do you have empathy? Can you think on your feet? So I boil it down to these basic characteristics. So the first break all the rules, basically the biggest takeaway is you cannot put in what God intentionally left out. Okay? So, and now you overlay the context of India. Now we have a country where if you go to campus hiring, everybody is doing BE computer science. This year I'm seeing there are 10 different computer science and AI BTechs in every university, right?
Okay.
So everybody wants to do BE computer science, but they're all different people. They're not built for programming jobs. At Freshworks or TCS, they're not, but they are doing it because their parents are telling them to do it, right?
Yeah, job orientation.
Yeah, so now what we did was, we actually went for campus hiring and really used this learning that I don't care about your degree. I want to find what your talent is. So if I'm hiring for customer support, I need to find the person with empathy and patience. And if I'm hiring for pre-sales, I need to find the person who can teach me new things, who can think on their feet when I adjust the audience level. If I'm hiring for sales, I will talk to you about multiple topics. You have to make the conversation interesting. You have to be shameless. I'll ask you to sing or dance. You have to do that, right? So these are natural traits. I don't care whether you're a biotech engineer or a computer science engineer. So if I know this is who you are, then I can put you in that role and then groom you into that.
All this is now baked into your sort of interview process.
Yes, for fresher hiring, yes.
Yeah. And then when the other end of the spectrum?
The other end of spectrum, right? Yeah. See, all of this can work as a startup and we are learning by doing, right? There is a cost to learning by doing. You will make mistakes. So people have to understand learning by doing
entails
it basically means you will make mistakes and you have to learn. Otherwise, how will you learn? Right?
Just minimize the cost of the mistakes.
Yeah. So when you're a startup going from 0 to 1 or 1 to 50 or 50 to 100 or 100 to 200, and when you're VC funded, VC money is very forgiving. You can make these mistakes and go, right? Now let's talk about the journey that we are on, right? Like when we went public, we are at 300 million revenue, right? So from 300 million, I want to go to 3 billion or 5 billion revenue, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do I do that? Now that brings two different set of questions. So we are a public company. So public company comes with its own set of requirements. So for SEC compliance, I cannot hire somebody in Bangalore and say, we learn by doing stuff. Right? Because one mistake can kill you, right?
Yeah.
Or global tax, right? We have a global tax expert. There is a whole organization that is needed to support a public company.
Yeah.
So when you need to know, there are certain roles where learning by doing is simply not worth it or acceptable. So that's when you definitely want to hire people who have been there and that. Second, when you want to scale, access to the talent pool. Now, we were doing a lot of this because we didn't have access to it. Now, with Freshworks being in the US and being in Europe, and we have access to the talent pool, would I be better off hiring somebody who has seen that scale, who has taken companies from 200 million to 2 billion multiple times, like the playbooks that they have seen? Like if we have access to the talent, then that's the right strategy at this point of time, because again, learning by doing may not be the best strategy when you have access to that.
And coming to, I mean, I know you jokingly, I don't know whether you put it on Twitter or I heard it from you, but you had this analogy about everyone's clamoring for my IPO, but it's like a big fat Indian wedding where everyone comes for the party, and then I'm the one who's married to the company for another 10-15 years. How does it feel after the NASDAQ IPO? And I know you're going through your own journey, but personally, what was the most transformative aspect of becoming a post-public company? Because I think it's becoming important both in the context of Indian companies trying to go public here, and while people might aspire, not enough have gone public on NASDAQ. And you only know that emotion, but what has changed in you per se as a founder? How do you have to think about this transition from being venture funded to a public company?
See, I use this analogy of IPO being the wedding and being a public company. I think that analogy fits perfectly, and I'll explain how, right? Yeah. So, a VC funded company is like a bachelor who can party and have fun, and you can do a lot of things, right? A public company is like, at some point, we realize that, okay, I've had a great life as a bachelor. Now it's time to settle down, become responsible, start a family, and then you go into marriage, right? So, now jokes apart, being a public company and being in marriage, the responsibility is an important thing, right? There can be great things accomplished in a family or in a public company when you understand the responsibility. Day to day, you may have good times, you may have bad times. All of us go through that, right? Like it's not really, I don't think anybody who's been in marriage can say I've had every day of my life was bliss, right? Yeah. So I think public companies like that. So the narrative, a lot of people tend to focus on only the hardship part of it. The true rewards of being a public company comes from the learnings. And every quarter, we learn so much by actually listening to investors on how they are looking at the company outside in, and what does that mean. It actually helps us prioritize really what is important for the company over the long term also.
Yeah.
So, see, when you, this is again like when you look at it from the surface, you only focus on the general narrative. Narrative. Yes. Being a public company requires a lot more governance, a lot more transparency and compliance. So there is a lot of work to be done. But that is the world standard, right? So if you really look at truly the companies that have created massive wealth creation for so many people, like you take the Microsofts and the Amazons and the Googles of the world, if that is the gold standard, why are people doing it, right? See, if the general narrative is a public company is hard, why do you want to do that? Then there should be no public company.
That's right.
Who are the companies that we... So then you have to ask the question, why are smart people doing it again and again and again?
Yeah.
So number one, That's the only way to create a massive wealth creating machine for decades, right?
That's right.
If you're a private company with
journey stops.
then it stops. So that is number one. Number two is, as the company scales, right? And I have an analogy with fitness also, right? See, when you're eating, you have unhealthy eating habits, right? And you're not paying attention to what you're eating, you end up becoming unhealthy, right? And that analogy can happen to many VC funded startups, because you're loading a lot of money and you're spending a lot of money without knowing what you're getting for it. So you actually end up being very unhealthy, right? The number one responsibility for a public company CEO is capital allocation. So every quarter, and every year, you have to review, hey, how is the capital being used? Where am I deploying it and what am I getting for it? What are the best places where I can actually invest more and grow faster? What are some of the places that I should probably get out of? There may be examples of, maybe sometimes we have to we may take bad calls because we didn't understand the true long-term potential thing, but mostly this is good. Like in fitness, right?
Yeah.
If you cut your carbs, you can become fit. If you exercise daily. So I think that is very, very true. If you really, and my transformation in the last 2 years, 2.5 years as a public company CEO was, when I started looking at it as a learning opportunity, because I fundamentally believe when smart people are doing something, I want to understand why are they doing it. So if I just focus on the difficulties, I will not learn that. So I want to focus on what is the goodness of being a public company. And then I understand that, okay, with so many investors, when they're looking at from the outside, what are they looking at? What moves the needle for the company? Now we know, when we listen carefully and talk to enough investors, now we know how to do this. It's still hard, but if you focus on the learning, that's what I did. I think it's fantastic.
No, lovely answer. And I know when we planned the interview, the news was not out. Now the news is out. You've decided to sort of move away from the CEO title per se and be executive chairman. Now, and I remember reading, somebody must have asked you, and we picked that press quote up, where you say that when Freshworks started, you sensed something magical beginning to happen in the SaaS enabled world, and now you feel that moment in AI is there, and you're a product guy, you love that. And I get that sense sometimes after 13-14 years, that love for investing is somehow consumed by organization building after spending 14 years. So is that the trigger, is that the motivation to go back to, like, saying, I want Freshworks to look like a very different company on the back of a AI first world 5-10 years from now, and I want to chart out that path and have somebody who's been there, done that, build out the public company on a steady path while I look at the future. Is that guesstimate right?
Yes, I've said this publicly. See, okay, today there is nobody who's going to argue that AI is going to be super disruptive. 6 years ago, we asked this question. 2016, we asked the question, what can kill Freshworks? The answer was AI. We started investing in Reddy AI. But after the ChatGPT demo, we are all blown away by the potential of AI, right? Now, I've told this at Freshworks, I've told this at SaaSBoomi, and I've told this at Together Fund, right? AI is the future, and the world is going to go through a massive transformation phase. Now, if I look at my role at Freshworks, I again ask, I can hold on to the CEO title if I had wanted to, right? But the point is, where can I add value? True long-term values. And I told you about listening to investors, right? So, what is the market perception of investors towards Freshworks? So they want to know, is Freshworks going to be impacted by AI, disrupted, customer service being disrupted by AI is the talk of the town.
Yeah.
Is Freshworks going to be neutral, or is Freshworks going to be like a beneficiary of AI, right?
Yeah.
Now we have to demonstrate that if customer service is going to get automated by AI, somebody has to build the AI technology. And we have been working on that for 5 years, and we know what needs to be done, and we have to build it, sell it, and show the numbers. So if I look at what will I enjoy doing, and we talked about riding a wave, riding the Java wave and riding the SaaS wave. So the AI wave is a monster wave. I said that it's SaaSBoomi. I definitely think this is the right moment personally for me to enjoy riding the AI wave. I should try, meaning whether riding a wave is whether you're successful or not, you'll know after riding it. But the thrill is in riding the wave.
Pick up the surfboard and go.
So that's what I'm doing. And it also is the best use of my time from a long-term value creation of Freshworks. So that's the reason.
So I think, and the Freshworks story, I think, is now folklore. It's almost like, it's the foundation and we're building beyond that. And we'll come to SaaSBoomi, but the SaaS ecosystem as a whole has just like erupted, right? And it's a Cambrian explosion of sorts, right? So it keeps growing with every 3, 4, 5 years. It's inevitable, but people wouldn't have guessed the pace or the scale. Like when I come to SaaSBoomi, I'm just blown away by the scale. But from your lens, and you've said, it's the right time for founders to build tech products in India. What if you double click on that, what makes you confident that it is easier to build that? And what is like, if you had to put like a goal out there, what would you want to dream for Indian SaaS in the global market 10 years down the line? What would that dream be?
So I'm glad you used the word dream, because this explosion of SaaS that you're seeing, it all started as a dream, right? So see, I'll start with I think 2015 or 16, when we were looking at, hey, let's plug into an ecosystem, and there was no ecosystem, right? So, and I was talking to Avinash, who was at iSpirit at that time, and we said, okay, let's just call a bunch of founders and host what we called as an unconference in Chennai. So we did an unconference in Chennai.
I remember that.
Yeah, we just called it SaaSX originally.
Yes.
And we said, okay, there were 40 attendees. These were all companies who were building global products from India in SaaS. And Freshworks was the biggest company at the time with 5 million revenues. We had crossed 5 million, and everybody else was smaller than that. And so we said, okay, there's no ecosystem. Why don't we actually create one? So that's the genesis of SaaSBoomi, right? So the dream was India as a product nation. So many people have this dream. Like, so NASCOM created a product council. iSpirit was started with that thing. I think it's inevitable. And it's the natural next step for India's soft power evolution, because we all know the success we've had with IT services.
That's right.
So with IT services, we had not just Indian companies like Infosys, Wipro, TCS, but also global majors like IBM, Accenture, Capgemini. They employ more people in India
than
some of the others, right? And that is the first step. Then, because of the talent available here, you also have all the global product majors. Talk about Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, ServiceNow. Everybody has an India office. We have people who are working in those companies who actually have built products, global products, right? Yes. So that talent pool is there. And then we have companies like Freshworks and so many others, and Flipkart and Ola, where we have built both B2B and B2C products. And again, like we are now, our talent is grown, right?
Yes.
Like people who joined as freshers, today they are leaders in many SaaS companies. So I think availability of the talent pool is the number one factor. The aspirational middle class, the demographic advantage that India has. Capital is not a constraint anymore. Government is super favorable and steady for policy. And most importantly, the SaaS was the wave, and now AI being another wave. Like, see, India is the second largest contributor to AI ML repositories on GitHub. That we have the second largest number of developers after China. US is third after India, right? In terms of the volume of quantity of AI talent available. So I think SaaS and AI actually are providing this opportunity for transforming India as a product nation, right? So and that is going to happen. It's inevitable, and so this started as a dream. So in fact, our original event in iSpirit was called Product Nation, and that's how I got connected into that ecosystem, and that's how we did SaaSBoomi. So at our IPO, when I introduced Avinash, we spoke about India as a product nation and how this is an important milestone event. I think today, that is the moment that all of us in the community should actually engage together on, where how do we play our role in being a catalyst towards this transformation that's already happening. This is going to be the decade of India as a product nation. So I think now, where do we see ourselves by 2030? I think we will be creating, like, there are many numbers out there. Like it could be 500 billion or $1 trillion worth of value.
In
and
totality as
yeah,
well.
and maybe $50 billion of revenue, right? So we'll have to figure out the exact numbers. But okay, the numbers can be off a little bit, but
then the scale should be in
the
that way.
tsunami of startups is happening in not just the metros. Like you will be amazed. Like when we do the SaaSBoomi events in tier 2, tier 3 towns, like the number of founders we are seeing, the excitement. Even if you just do a social, people coming there with excitement, wanting to learn.
Agree.
I think this is
Surat, Coimbatore, Indore.
Yeah.
We see startups from all these places now.
So I think we are living the dream.
Awesome. I know as a public company, you can't put numbers to your own market cap, but I think broadly the direction I heard from you is if IT services could do it, that's a great yardstick. We should create that kind of revenue and a multiple on that. So we create $50 billion of revenue, inevitably you should get $500 billion to $1 trillion of like value and market cap created. So that's a great starting point for the continuation of the dream. And apart from SaaSBoomi, of course, which you've been someone who's grounded it in Chennai, clearly there are other dreams of Girish that are playing out today. One is this wonderful setting that you facilitated this morning, FC Madras. I'm sure people would love to know what the backstory of why football/soccer, why did this dream, how did it come to life, and I'm sure that's an episode by itself. But very quickly, if the audience can know what drove passion for FC Madras.
Sure. See, I think I'm not a soccer player myself, right? I played very casually at school, so I'm also a fan of soccer, but not a player. And so my sons used to play very briefly, so they're also not into soccer anymore. But I think there was one incident when I was taking my son for a recreational soccer weekend program. So I saw like almost 80 kids playing in a field, in a football field in Adyar in Chennai, and they were playing on it was like a mud field, and it was like subdivided into smaller areas, and the kids were having fun, obviously, but it was dust all around. The parents were sitting and waiting by the benches, and so the love for the sport and the talent was visible. The lack of infrastructure was also clearly visible, right? And when I used to travel for work, the same scenario in like scenes play out in a very different manner in the US, where the weather is like very cold, so the soccer fields are empty. Or I've many times seen a dad and a kid just practice scoring goals, so that they have the fields, but many days they don't have 22 players to fill the field, right? So I think this disparity was striking in my mind. So when I saw that, and thanks to Freshworks, and I was able to make some money, and I always felt that the purpose of money is to serve society. And the inspiration also came, a part of the inspiration also came where one of the weekend matches, we took the kids to a ground in SSN Engineering College, which is not far from here. And they had a nice natural grass ground and a gallery. All the parents had come, kids are playing. I could see the joy in the face of the children and the joy in the face of the parents when you have an infrastructure like that. So I think that's where I think, okay, somebody has to do something about this. So now let's be the first one to do it. And actually I hope, and I will make a call on this podcast as well, I use every opportunity to do that. I actually encourage successful founders who have made money to do something, get inspired by things like this and build something. I'm not asking for money to support my charity. I'm saying do something on your own. And if it's for sport, India needs to be a sporting nation also, right? Not just a product nation. Because when you think about our children, and I've used this in the FC Madras video, I show picture of Sundar Pichai and Sachin Tendulkar, and I show their 4th standard timetable. right? And there's only one PT period and everything. So academic kids like Sundar end up really successful because of the system, and they end up in Google or Microsoft, right? So Satya and so on. But sporting champions in India are successful in spite of the system. Right? Because there's no infrastructure, there is no opportunity. So how do we make sure that our children, some of them may be academically brilliant, some of them may be sporting champions, we need to create the environment for them to succeed in both. So I hope I would welcome everybody to come and see this and get inspired and build something.
I was so keen to come and see it, so thanks again for making this happen this morning. Also, it's like you're now seeing it live. I know the trials going on. And I didn't envisage the scale of it until you come and see it. So I would encourage all the viewers to come and see what Girish has built, and I'm sure we can work it out at his office and have startup tours coming and getting inspired by this. The fact that, as you said, it is residential, it focuses on a different timetable, it trains the kid very differently. You're setting them up for a chance of success. And I think the end state, like you said, can we be a sporting nation? Can we win beyond boundaries? And, on sports at a scale where we are truly up to our potential of, this kind of youth that we have. And then I know you've started playing an active role in Together Fund. Clearly, it seems like an extension, but usually you'll find founders being an angel investor or sometimes just being an LP in a fund. You've been all of that as well. We are beneficiaries of having you as an investor in one of our funds. What prompted you to think about, hey, that's a track I want to be a little bit more involved in? Because that's another hat you wear.
So we want to show the world that it is possible to build a world-class product company from India, right? India's got the talent, and if the playbooks are right, if the right opportunity and resources are available, we can do this from India, right? Now, if you look at SaaSBoomi, that's exactly what we want to do.
Yeah.
Right? The product nation dream is so my job at Freshworks gave me the pole position. So I've used this in SaaSBoomi. I've said we are like the Roger Bannister moment. So we broke the 4-minute mile, and then so many others will break it, and we are seeing that happen now. So many other companies are coming in. So the journey of Freshworks gave me the opportunity to show the world that, hey, there is a case study that this is possible. And you said now all the investors are hot on B2B. I'm glad we played a role. And we actually did conscious things also. We publicly announced our 100 million and 200 million revenue numbers because we wanted the world to notice that this is possible. With SaaSBoomi, we wanted to say, hey, it's not about Freshworks. It's about, people have advised me, why are you opening up and sharing your playbooks and numbers? Like this is all... you're giving away your secret. I said, it's not about Freshworks. It's about India needs employment. Unemployability is still a problem for us. We need to create opportunity. We need to create IP. And so this is really, really important. So I was also adamant in hiring and keeping all the jobs in Chennai because that's how you create the talent pool, right? Yeah. So what we did with SaaSBoomi was open up the playbooks, make sure that people are making new mistakes and share all the existing mistakes that we made so that they can learn faster, right? This happens beautifully in Silicon Valley. And we wanted to create the community, that engagement and ecosystem of pay it forward here. So then we realized, hey, we are doing all this to help, and I was also doing angel investment. I'm an angel investor in more than 60 or 70 companies now. In fact, and very, very grateful for the opportunity that founders provided me. I'm today I'm getting a 30x return on a 50K investment that I made also. So, and you have also provided some ride along opportunities. So thank you for that. So, so what we realized was, even after providing all those playbooks at SaaSBoomi, for a good startup, finding the right investor is also an important and interesting challenge. And we have seen that be a hit and miss. Like some founders are, I would consider myself very fortunate to be working with the best of investors. But there are companies that we have seen that have been not getting the right kind of operational advice and being forced to go in different directions and then shut down because co-founders didn't agree. So the right investment partner was still a hit or miss. So we felt like, hey, we are operators. We know the playbooks. And again, at that time, there wasn't any focus. Say, every investor was B2C and consumer
We are
internet.
generalists at that level.
Yeah, so every investor was a generalist. So we felt we truly believe this is coming. We truly know how to do it. Then why don't we actually use the opportunity that we can see to create a fund that is focused on global products from India, and that's how Together Fund happened.
No, who better than you? So no, that's fantastic. And I think, that 2.0, not to sort of embarrass you, but it feels like your Tala moment as well, right? So it's essentially, how do I evolve to become a leader that everyone respects? And what can I do for society, and be back to the humility, and not be the unchanged Girish that everybody saw even in 2010. You always get a sense of that when we meet, Girish. So thanks for being who you are, and I think it's coming through. Last question, very quickly. Is there a pride in seeing a Freshworks mafia brewing? Is it important? Is it a real thing? Beyond or is it just a subset of this entire SaaSBoomi product nation?
No, I think in fact, yesterday I was telling somebody, I'm actually super proud of the culture that we have created.
Yeah.
See, there is a WhatsApp group for Freshworks alumni with 450 plus members.
Amazing.
Right? And these people have actually gone and worked in other startups.
Yeah.
Some have changed 2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah.
But Freshworks connection is what is holding them. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why aren't they in some other startup mafia group, right?
Yeah.
So I think that all boils down to the culture and the people and the experience that they had at Freshworks. And I feel super proud. In fact, one of the plans that I have, see, our annual event is called Refresh.
Yeah.
So I want to actually do an event called Extra Fresh and actually host all the alums and have fun.
Lovely. So down to the rapid fire round. So favorite Talaivar film?
Shivaji the Boss.
Oh, lovely. And tea or coffee?
Coffee, filter coffee, South Indian filter coffee.
Any recommendations for the best places that you like in Chennai?
Freshworks office.
Awesome.
My home.
Okay, awesome. And what's best piece of advice you've received? I know you refer to Gopal's 2.0, but anything beyond that?
So there are many, many things. I actually learn from people, right?
Yeah.
And I think 1 or 2 things I can quickly say. So you can be aggressive in your work, but you should not be abrasive in your relationships with people. So sometimes people need to know the difference between the two, right?
Yeah.
So when you're pushing hard to win more, how do you still respect? So relationships are very, very important, and don't break the fabric of trust with people, because that's hard to build back.
Yeah.
So good, successful founders should always learn to understand, like they should learn this nuance that you can actually be very aspirational and be aggressive in your go-to-market in wanting to win, but still be really soft and not be abrasive in your people.
No, I have a version of this, and it's important because I think a lot of people, catch these catchphrases from some 80s Wall Street movie and says, it's nothing personal, it's all business. And there can't be a more false statement than that.
Yeah.
So eventually we've seen, and I tell a lot of my colleagues, I mean, even whether it's a founder or whether it's a other VC or whatever, 10 years later they come back in your life in another avatar and truly influence a decision that could impact value for you.
Right.
It's just scary how these cycles come back.
Well, I can do an entire episode on that.
Your favorite Indian restaurant in Seattle, for those who are watching from there?
Farsi Cafe.
Oh, you like Farsi there? Okay, I know the founder, he would love to hear that. And the non-Indian restaurant in Seattle?
Fun Thai.
Fun Thai, okay. Clearly a Thai fan as well. What's harder, being the founder, franchise owner, or an investor now?
See, founder is the hardest, right? Especially early days, you don't have money. As a franchisee owner or as an investor, you have money and you have to wait to make money for 10 years. All of these are 10-year journeys.
That's right.
Founder is the hardest.
And what do you do outside of work to recharge?
I play tennis.
Right, lovely. I know I took away a tennis lesson today, so once again, thanks a lot for all the
No, it rained yesterday, so no tennis today.
Okay, so I don't feel as bad anymore. But once again, Girish, thanks for this wonderful opportunity. I think our viewers would love to, sort of replay parts of this episode time and again. Just a lot of nuggets of wisdom, and that's what India needs to hear as well. So that's what we're trying to bring out So thank you again.
No, thank you for having me.
Girish, we have this funky company called Ultra Human. So they've been kind enough to say that they want all our guests to be on Ultra Human. So there's a sizing kit for you. You have to go home and your significant other, tell us what your size is and then send you the rings. They're also going to launch this thing called Ultra Human Home, which is essentially monitors everything around pollution and all of the aspects of what monitors your health at home. So won a prize at CES and we're going to launch later this year. So hopefully you'll be an Ultra Human user and customer. Thank you.